about half hour before we went on the air, the governors of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo, and New Jersey, Phil Murphy, announced that teams can return to facilities. And both the Giants and Jets sent out statements saying that we're looking into it. We'll do it when it's best for our operations. But it certainly looks like dovetailing the comments from Stephen Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, who does have many businesses from malls to gyms and all that sort of stuff. That so him being optimistic in public helps a lot of his businesses. But it does certainly look right now, Albert, like this is a go. Would you say that that's the general sentiment right now with the NFL?
Yeah, there's still like a lot of restrictions in these states as they do reopen where, NFL teams wouldn't be able to bring everybody back. And I think if you look at the timeline of reopening in places like New Jersey and New York and Washington State, and Massachusetts, and California, certainly, I don't think there's a real likelihood that they'll be able to get everyone back in the building in those sorts of places by the time, what is spring on the NFL calendar ends, which is going to be, I believe, June 26th. So what I think you'll see over the next month is really teams starting to filter people back in so they can test some of the protocols that they put in place. The good news is that this does put them in position to open training camp on time, which would put us on schedule to open the season on time. So I'd be surprised if, you get players en masse back in buildings, at any point over the next month. But what you might see where, the league wants to see what it looks like with players in some places. And so they may say, well, you can't go out and have a practice because that would give you an advantage over these other teams. But if you want to go in and meet, maybe you can do that. And that would be the first sign of the NFL really, seriously breaking, what had been, I think, pretty protective measures from a competitive balance standpoint to kind of insulate the teams that are in the areas with more restrictive rules.
So I guess what are you hearing about everything else that Troy Vincent, the head of football operations, saying that essentially that they're going to go full bore, expect a full season on time with fans until they're told otherwise. And the owner of the Dolphins, Stephen Ross, saying there's a plan to have at least 15,000 fans at Dolphins games, this fall. What is the timeline from what you're hearing for a league with a league that's essentially taken full advantage of them not having to have one over the last several months in a way that other sports who were interrupted had to have?
I think it's okay to say. I think it's okay for everybody to say I don't know because we don't know what this is going to look like in July or August. That said, there's definitely been progress. And I do think they're eventually going to have to cross that bridge where there are going to be some inequities where one state's going to allow this and another state's not going to allow that. It's going to be problematic for one team and maybe not so much for another. To this point, they've had that luxury, like you said, where they don't have to do anything. They're at a point in their calendar where it's okay for them to just sit back and kind of watch what happens with everybody else. And they're going to have that luxury over the next couple months too, Rich. I mean, as baseball and basketball and hockey get back to work, they're going to get a chance to look at what those sports do right, what those sports do wrong, and incorporate it to what they're doing. I would say this, as far as what Troy is saying, Troy Vincent's saying, the league office has to take care of the teams, and right now the teams are going to have to sell tickets, and so they do have to project confidence to their customers that they're going to at least try to do this so they can move the product. But I think there are certain places, certainly the teams out there in LA that I think are very much planning for the reality that they could start the season without fans in the stands or with a limited number of fans in the stands. And so much of this, as you know, is going to be based on what happens state to state. But I'd expect them to kind of be confident about the idea that they could have fans in the stands come September or October, with the knowledge that it's probably going to be different from one team to the next.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.